Hey there, today we are going to meal prep for breakfast together, and this has to be one of my all-time favorite breakfast meal preps just because all of these recipes are exceptionally easy and they are all grab and go. So in the morning time, all you have to do is grab something out of your fridge or freezer and then it's ready within a couple minutes. So I hope you enjoy it and let's go start prepping. We're getting kicked off today by making the best ever breakfast sandwiches. So to begin, to the pan on my stove, I'm adding 1 pound of sausage. You could use any type of breakfast sausage that you like. Go ahead and break the sausage up and cook it through. Once it is cooked through, remove any excess grease. And I do want to mention, so we did cook up 1 pound of the sausage, but we're only going to be using a half a pound for these breakfast sandwiches. And then we are going to be saving the other half a pound of sausage for our breakfast burritos. So right now I'm just separating our sausage. One thing that we do love adding to our breakfast sandwiches is Canadian bacon, or you could use ham. This is pre-cooked and it's about 6 ounces. So I'm cutting it into smaller pieces just like this at this point. I'm going to set our Canadian bacon to the side, and now in this big bowl, we're going to work on our eggs. So I'm cracking 12 eggs into the bowl, and then you are going to be adding about 1 cup of milk, and then you'll add your seasonings. I'm keeping it simple and just adding a dash of salt and pepper, but you could add any type of seasonings you love. Go ahead and whisk this all together. Now you'll see what really sets these breakfast sandwiches apart and makes them perfect to meal prep. I have my sheet pan. I sprayed it with plenty of nonstick spray so the egg doesn't stick. And then I poured our scrambled egg mixture right onto our sheet pan. Now you'll sprinkle the Canadian bacon and sausage all over the top. But I do want to mention too, if you're not the biggest fan of Canadian bacon or sausage, you could use regular bacon, or you can make this a veggie meal. So you could just do bell peppers, onions, mushrooms, spinach, anything you want to add to the egg mixture at this point, go ahead and do it. This will bake in a preheated oven to 325 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes, or until your egg has set. Once it's out of the oven, let it cool down completely, and then you will be cutting out little circles just like this. I'm using a lid to a mason jar, or you could use a cookie cutter or just a knife. Now we're going to begin to assemble our breakfast sandwiches. So I'm using English muffins. I have them laid out on my countertop, or you could use thin bagels or whatever you want to use. And then I have slices of cheddar cheese and then our egg. I'm placing a slice of cheese on each English muffin, and then I'm going to be placing one of the egg circles on each English muffin as well, and then closing them up. This is really easy to do. If you've been wondering what we're doing with the excess egg on our sheet pan, don't worry, we're not letting it go to waste. Of course, you could always add it to your breakfast sandwiches, but I have a little surprise that we're going to be doing with it in just a moment, so you wait and see. But now that our breakfast sandwiches are assembled, I'm going to be wrapping each of them tightly in cling wrap so they last longer either in the refrigerator or the freezer. After I'm through wrapping these up in the cling wrap, I'm going to place them in my large gallon-size freezer bag. I did date the freezer bag just so I remember when I made these, but these will last in your refrigerator up to a week or your freezer up to 2 months, so it's totally awesome. And then the way that I like to reheat these is I remove the cling wrap from the outside, and then we like our English muffins nice and toasty in our house, so I place them into the toaster just like this, and then I place the egg and the cheese part in my microwave for 30 seconds up to a minute, just depending on if it's frozen or not. Now you have the most delicious, filling breakfast that only took you a couple of minutes in the morning to prepare, so you could grab it and you could go head to work or head to whatever you need to do in the morning. Now we're going to begin to prepare one of my favorite breakfasts ever, breakfast burritos. So to get it started, we are going to be making our sheet pan twisted bacon, and you will see why this bacon is amazing. But I have my sheet pan, I lined it with parchment paper and then placed my wire rack on top. If you don't have a wire rack, you could just skip the wire rack step. Now I have my bacon and I'm twisting it up tightly like this. This is going to make your bacon extra crispy, and then it's also going to allow you to have more space on your sheet pan for double the amount of bacon than regular sheet pan bacon. So I just twisted about 24 ounces of bacon up, and I'm going to bake it on 350 degrees for about 25 minutes. After those 25 minutes of baking, I removed it from our oven, and now I'm going to be flipping the bacon over just like this, and it's going to continue to bake for an additional 25 minutes or until your bacon's to the crispiness that you like it to be. Now that our bacon's out of the oven, I'm going to set it to the side while we begin to work on our potatoes for inside of the burritos. I have about 3 pounds of yellow little potatoes right here, or you could use red potatoes. I cut them into super small bite-sized pieces, and then I place them in this large bowl. In the bowl, go ahead and add 1/4 cup of olive oil and then your seasonings. The seasonings I love adding for these potatoes, it's just a teaspoon of paprika, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic salt, 1/2 teaspoon of pepper, and then 1/2 teaspoon of seasoned salt. Stir this all together to combine the ingredients. Spread the potatoes out evenly on your sheet pan lined with parchment paper, and then bake this in a preheated oven to 450 degrees for 17 minutes. After 17 minutes, remove it from the oven and give it a stir, and then continue to bake it for an additional 17 minutes or until the potatoes are fork tender. You can't have breakfast burritos without scrambled eggs, so now that our potatoes are in the oven, I'm going to make our scrambled eggs. So in the scrambled egg mixture, I have about 15 eggs. I just beat them up with about 1 cup of milk and salt and pepper, very similar to what we did with the breakfast sandwiches. And then I added them into my Dutch oven and I let them cook until they were nice and fluffy, just like this. Here's what our breakfast potatoes are looking like out of the oven. You would just love them. They're perfectly crisp on the outside and nice and soft on the inside, and they're seasoned so good. But here's our bacon out of the oven as well. I just cut it into smaller pieces once it was cooled down, and now I'm adding the sausage from our breakfast sandwiches in with the bacon, and I'm giving it a stir. And then to the left of the bacon, as you can see, that is the leftover egg and ham and sausage mixture that we made from the breakfast sandwiches. I'm adding it into a few of the burritos just so we didn't have to let that mixture go to waste. So as you see, we're just assembling the burritos at this point. I added in the egg mixture along with the potatoes and then a little bit of cheese. I do also want to mention everything is completely cooled down at this point. So the eggs completely cooled down, the bacon, the sausage, the potatoes. You do want to prep these when everything is cooled down. After I rolled our breakfast burritos up in our flour tortillas, I tightly wrapped them in cling wrap like what we did with the breakfast sandwiches, and then I placed them into my freezer bags. These will last in your fridge up to a week, or they'll last in your freezer up to 3 months. And then the way that we like to warm these up is I just grab a plate, and then I remove the cling wrap from the outside of the burrito, and then I place the burrito onto the plate, and then we like to open our burritos up before we stick them in the microwave. I just think that it warms up quite a bit more evenly when we open it up, but I just stick it in my microwave for about a minute or until the cheese is melty and everything is warm, and then it's ready to enjoy. If you're a blueberry or an oatmeal fan, these baked blueberry oatmeal cups are definitely for you. In my large bowl right here, I have 4 bananas. I'm mashing them up to the best of my ability. After I was finished with that, I cracked 4 eggs in, and then I'm going to beat these ingredients all together. Now we're going to be tossing in our 4 cups of old-fashioned rolled oats. After we add in our oats, we're going to be adding in a half a cup of brown sugar. Next, add in 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and then a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and then 1/4 cup of maple syrup. Mix these ingredients together. The very last thing I'm folding in is 2 cups of frozen blueberries. I'm using frozen just because my grocery store doesn't have fresh right now. They're not really in season, but you could use fresh if you could find them at your store. Now I have my 2 muffin tins. I grease them with plenty of nonstick spray, and then I'm adding our mixture right in there. This is going to bake in a preheated oven to 425 degrees for about 18 minutes. Once these were out of the oven, I let them cool down completely before I place them in my large gallon-size freezer bags, and then these will last in your refrigerator up to a week, or they'll last in your freezer for about 2 to 3 months. And then to warm these up, you could of course just warm them up in your microwave and eat them as muffins, but what we like to do in our house is I place them into a bowl and then I warm them up in my microwave for around a minute or until they're warm, and then I take them out of the microwave, I break it up into smaller pieces just like this, and then I pour a little bit of milk in. I use regular milk or you could use almond milk, and then I pour a little bit of maple syrup in, give it a good stir, and then this is out of this world good. It almost tastes like you're eating cake for breakfast, but it's really filling and healthy. Pancakes are definitely high on my list to meal prep for breakfast just because my daughter is obsessed with pancakes. So I'm making whole wheat pancakes, but you can make regular if you'd like. In this bowl, I added 1.5 cups of whole wheat flour, like I said, or you could use all-purpose flour, and then 4 teaspoons of baking powder, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and a tablespoon of sugar. I whisked these dry ingredients all together until they were combined. Now I'm going to add our not so dry ingredients, so 1 egg followed by 1.5 cups of milk, a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and then 1/4 cup of melted butter. I'm going to beat these ingredients together. One thing I love doing when making pancakes is I pour the batter into a liquid measuring cup, and then it makes it way less messy and just easy cheesy when pouring the batter onto my griddle. But I'm using my griddle, or you could use a skillet. I poured the batter on, let these pancakes cook for a couple of minutes, and then I place them on my wire rack to completely cool down before I place them in my large gallon-size Ziploc bag. If you don't gobble these pancakes up within the first few days, they'll last in your freezer for up to 3 months, and then we like to reheat them either in the toaster or the microwave. Now we're making the best ever, easiest overnight oats. I have my 4 mason jars right here. They're smaller. You could use larger mason jars if you want to double this recipe, or you could use Tupperware containers. But after I added 1/3 cup of old-fashioned rolled oats into each of the jars, I added 1/2 cup of whole milk, or you could use plant-based milk or really any type of milk you like. After that, add in 1/2 teaspoon of chia seeds in each of the jars, and then since this is apple cinnamon overnight oats, we're also adding in 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon in each of the jars. And then for the apple, I'm using 1 Honeycrisp apple that I cut into really small pieces, and I'm just dividing that apple into each of the jars. And then I am going to be adding a tablespoon of maple syrup. Next, you'll place the lid on top and then give these a really good shake. These are going to go in your refrigerator for at least 5 hours to set up, or of course overnight, and then these will last in your fridge up to 5 days, so it is perfect for an entire work week. Here's what they look like the next day. These are so flavorful and delicious. They almost taste like a dessert. I really hope you enjoyed this today, and I would love to have you here, so go ahead and subscribe down below the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.